Welcome to the CSBP Fertilisers Grow Better podcast, sharing knowledge with growers on leading crop nutrition, sustainable agriculture and other issues impacting the agricultural industry.
G'day everyone and welcome to another episode of the CSBP Grow Better podcast. My name's Grey Johnston and I'm very pleased to be joined today by Brad Millsteed, a farmer and founder of the 6Bs initiative. G'day Brad.
G'day Grey, how are you?
Very well, thank you, and thanks for coming on the podcast. Now, I've dropped the 6Bs there, and for those who are watching on the video version, you've got it on your breast there. Before we get into talking about 6Bs and mental health, maybe you can just tell us a bit about yourself and what, where you grew up and what you're up to and your farming operation and your other interests.
Yep, no, absolutely. So, Brad Millsteed, a 51-year-old farmer, third generation that's been located in Watheroo, which is in the midwest of Western Australia, in the Shire of Moora. Exactly halfway between Perth and Geraldton, basically, and an hour inland from Jurien Bay or from the coast. So it's a mixed enterprise, so cropping and self-replacing merino flock is the business model. I'm farming with the previous generation, so I've got a father and an uncle there and a cousin as well. So there's the four of us on board each day, and the two old boys tend to pick and choose what they do, and so they own the place. So, the cousin and I are on farm each day. Comically call it the world's biggest hobby farm / retirement village.
How did your season just gone? Finish off for you? Yeah,
2022 was amazing. I know a lot of the state had a really, really good one. There was only some very small pockets of frost, I think. Possibly, arguably more loss to some storms towards the end, in some hail and obviously fires, which are stock standard for that early harvest period. But no, for us personally, it was quite amazing. Wouldn't mind locking another one of them in, or if it was that easy every year, everyone would want to do it. So it was nice to get some returns on inputs for a long time.
Well, look, a positive message, and we'll do our best to lock those seasons in for you in the future. Our theme of our discussion today is 6Bs and men's mental health. And listeners on our podcast over the time we've been doing it have heard a lot about the 4 Rs of nutrition management, and we've had a lot of comments that none of the 4 Rs actually start with R. Can you start for us, Brad? What are the 6Bs and do they all start with B?
Yes, they do. So the 6Bs started back in 2017, was on May the 8th, on the back of an email that I'd received from Movember Foundation. I've supported Movember in the past very poorly. If you see any of the photos that I post, I'm a little bit follically challenged on the face, but and they were trying to promote Mate Day. So on May the 8th, the good old social media shortcut of M8, back when we used to pay 25 cents for every text, so you wanted as many characters as you could. So on Mate Day to check in on a mate, similar to Are You OK and all those other days. So early May, it had been a dry start in our area. Obviously 2016 had been a really good one, a little bit frosty for a lot of the state, but there's a fair few of us not really doing a hell of a lot. So we still had some trees that had come down in a summer storm that we'd cleaned up or put in a pile that needed to be burnt for paddock preparation. And contacted a couple of mates around home and sort of said to them, well, look, next Tuesday. I didn't actually mention that it was May the 8th. I just said, what about next Tuesday if we have a barbecue and we'll stick a match under these? And they both thought it was a great idea. So it was just, the invites were all by text message, just locally, but I use Twitter as my main social media, and my extroverted part of my personality, I'd put it up there, and ABC Regional Radio Drive had got hold of it, wanted to have a chat about it leading into it. So instead of the 6Bs, I was doing my 6Ps leading into that. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So, and I just came up with the fact that there was going to be 6 main things there. It was going to be blokes, there was going to be a barbecue, there was going to be a bonfire, there was going to be some beers, there was going to be some bonding, and then due to probably everything else, the combination of everything before that, there was going to be a bit of bullshit as well. So that was the core of the 6Bs, basically. So yes, to answer your question, yes, there's 6Bs on every single one of them.
Good. And look, bullshit is de rigueur on the CSBP Grow Better podcast. So we're really pleased that you can join us to expand on your version of it. Nice to hear about how that first, gathering, if you call it that, got started. And interesting that there was some interest from, radio and media, even at that early stage. What do you think prompted that?
It is the changing of thought process for so many people that mental health is being talked about more. At the start, it was heavily pushed towards mental health. Personally, I was dealing with the grief of losing a 17-year-old nephew in a car accident that was just pure fatigue, nothing more than just a young man driving, an unexperienced driver driving too late and driving tired. So I was dealing with that, and I'd watched a 3-part series on the ABC called Man Up. Gus Warland put it together, a radio personality from over east, and it really inspired me to try and take a lead in this space. It was going to help myself out. I'd sort of connected with that a bit. And in and around Watheroo at the time, we had no male team sport left going. I've played a lot of cricket at varying levels, a fair bit of local football too. And without that male team sport to get us blokes out and about to it, on a Sunday, or helping out, or telling the current generation how good we actually were, with history, years clouding our thoughts. But we just didn't have that. Our primary school was dwindling in numbers, so there wasn't the P&C functions to get out and about to. So it was just a bloody good excuse to get the band back together, basically, and have it. So that's pretty much the whole context of that first event. And I know during it I was out, getting another can from the back of my ute, and just looking back into the light of the bonfire and seeing all of my mates there. There's 25 there, which 25's about a par number for most events. Just seeing them there in the light, hearing the laughter, hearing the stories, hearing the bullshit, and it just, brings a smile to your face, and just went tick, yep, no, this is a good thing, and away it's gone from there.
I'm keen to hear about how 6Bs has progressed from that, I guess, inaugural gathering. But you touched also on, a couple of interesting themes around team sport dwindling and school populations dwindling as we see consolidation in our farming areas. Is that something, and you tied that quite directly actually to mental health or lack of people being able to support each other? Is that a theme you've seen consistently as you've been running 6Bs events?
It's a real problem, and to be honest, I don't think it's fixable. The mechanisation of our industry has led to all of us doing so much more than the previous generations with so little people. I know part of that Man Up series that I spoke about, there's a farmer from New South Wales, an older gentleman featured in that, and hay was what he was talking about, the hay process. And he said back when he was a boy or a young man, they would have a couple of handfuls of people there for the hay that would take 6 weeks. And it's also the change of our cultures is they would go in for morning tea, they'd go in for lunch, they'd go in for afternoon smoko, and then they'd go home. So he said, I'm seeing 5, 6, 8, 10 people 3 times a day. He said, now I do the same amount, or I do the same area for 5 times as much hay all by myself. And he said, the only person I see for those 6 weeks is my wife. And he said, it's lonely. And that isolation is very, very real in rural areas, whether you're in ag or not. It's a real thing. We're all more connected than ever before thanks to our mobile phones, but arguably more disconnected than ever before because so much texting. It's not this conversation, not actually getting out and about and seeing other people.
And so 6Bs has, I guess, sprung from that isolation or has been directly linked as a route to combating that isolation, particularly amongst men in regional communities?
Yeah, it's just more to give blokes a reason and a purpose to get out and about, and it's absolutely no disrespect to our families. We love them more than anything else in the world, but blokes, if it's in a mixed crowd, it's inbuilt in us that we've got to be that hunter-gatherer, protector. We've got to put the armour on, or it's like an onion. You've got to keep the outside skin of the onion on, basically. Whereas if it's a male-only event, there's none of that. Yes, you'll always get the odd bloke that's there that's got to be bigger than Ben-Hur and all the rest of it, but a lot of them, it's just an opportunity to talk about where we are in life, what's been going on. I'm sure that there are some deeper conversations that go on in regard to mental health. I know everyone I go to, I end up with a few people coming up and saying to me afterwards, thank you so much for doing that. I really needed it. I was turning very grumpy at home, and that night out was just perfect for us. But it's also whereabouts I've tried to morph it a little bit from being purely mental health into being men's wellbeing, health in general. That for blokes to get there and talk as our body changes, and all of a sudden parts of your body change and things don't function like they used to function, and that sort of thing. Just to hear somebody else in the circle put their hand up and admit that, maybe they have a bit of erectile dysfunction, or, whatever it is, or all these other things that go on in the background that people don't really talk about. Just to hear that from somebody else can be reassuring, and you go, oh no, hang on, there's nothing wrong with me. This is meant to happen. There's also the story, and I know it did come up at one event, that a guy was talking about a mate when they were young fellas had a lump on his back, but didn't go and see anybody about it, and they buried him 18 months later. Stories like that can then maybe just be that bit of a kick up the arse that blokes need to go to the doctor, because we are very poor at doing that. So just to, share the sharing of those stories. And civilisations have prospered from generation to generation telling stories. But it goes on, even the Grey Brigade travelling around up north, they'll tell you where the cheap fuel is, the cheap beer, the good feed, and off they go. And it's, once again, we're really connected, but we've lost that art of passing on our life or our health stories to the other generation. You're just hoping that somebody else's life is made a lot easier if you can share something with them.
So you spoke there about, I guess, how the 6Bs has morphed and other events you've done. How has the program evolved from those initial engagements? And you talked about men's wellbeing as opposed to just mental health, but a sort of a broader construct there. How many events are happening at the moment, and how are those getting organised? Yeah,
and a lot of it is changing the language about it all. Like, when you do talk mental health, so much of the language is really, really negative. You're a sufferer, it's a disorder, all the rest of it. And if we could just use some softer terms, basically it'll help break down that stigma that we all talk about and get it talked about more. That's been the beautiful part about the 6Bs, is the growth is really organic. We're not a charity. I did look at setting a charity up, got a lot of ducks lined up, and then end up having a very enjoyable afternoon with a good mate at home with a box of Corona, back when we could say Corona without thinking about the spicy cough, and a lovely little butterflied leg of lamb, and we kicked it around, and we just ended up kept coming back to the fact that we're about raising awareness, not raising money. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you go to the charity thing, you've got to be raising money. So we have very few overheads. So money isn't...
Yeah, you're doing it out of passion, I guess.
Yeah, it's just trying to give back, I suppose. And, that's the thing. So it's unreal. I'll have people will make contact with me, either direct or, like I say, through Twitter, or we have actually got a website set up now so the inquiries can come through there. And... that they're keen on hosting an event, and I'll go, yep, no, that's great, but you're hosting it. I'll give you some ideas. We'll try and get one of we've got a handful of guys that come along and have a chat. But there's no structure, there's no procedure to an event. You run it how you want to run it, because you'll know the people that you're trying to target to get there. You'll know them better than we will. But these are the broad, rough things that we do each time, and I love leveraging them off a purpose. Whether it's a farm tour, a few that I've had around home. I did one that we had a butchering day, so we had 4 carcasses there. That a good mate who's a butcher by trade, but he's farming now, Evan Reynolds, came and cut them up 4 different ways, basically. And then another passion or hobby of mine is cooking. I like cooking, so we cooked these up sort of umpteen different ways and did it that way. So it gave guys a purpose to be there for another reason. We've done another one, which is a charcoal cooking day. That same thing. A couple of handfuls of blokes or 3 handfuls of blokes turn up and spend the day cooking and laughing and talking, and so it's amazing how it's grown organically. without being pushed or promotion and that sort of thing. It's it's nice.
And it sounds like it's not complex. It's just giving something for people to galvanise around, or giving a bit of impetus to just, someone has to put their head above the parapet and put themselves out there and say, hey, we're going to do this. And generally, sounds like people galvanise around it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like we mentioned earlier, talking about the team sports, the cornerstone of most rural populations and towns is A, their team sport, and B, their watering hole. But it became apparent to me, I've got a couple of good mates that one loves his team sport, the other one really doesn't like it. And it's like that everywhere. Not everyone does sport, not everyone enjoys a pub. But I haven't found anybody who doesn't like standing around a fire and looking at the bush TV, as it's called. So, I think it's just bringing it back to that central point of the bonfire. It's for want of a better term, a safe place, but just a nice casual place that you can gather around at night and debrief.
Now, 2023 will see the second Night Under the Stars event up at the Buckland Estate out between Toodyay and Northam, and that was an event that CSBP had some partnership with last year, and we'll be proud to partner with again this year. And 6Bs and yourself had some involvement as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Night Under the Stars was inaugural year last year. Run with Kendall White from the Blue Tree Project, and she and her good friend Courtney Thornton have got together again this year and running with it again. Last year it was down in Williams, out in a paddock around one of the original Blue Trees, out in a paddock there. It was a raging success. Last year they had basically 6 purpose partners, so which the 6Bs were one of the beneficiaries of that. Whereas this year they've changed that up, and so that was just the distribution of profits basically. So this year they've established a Shooting for the Stars fund. So all profits from this year's event, which will be on February the 18th at Buckland Estate, between Toodyay and Northam, those profits will be held in trust, and people are encouraged to nominate through the Night Under the Stars website to put a application in to be considered for the distribution of those profits to come through. So whether it's a mental health round of some sport or the opportunity to get a speaker up or something like that, just something that the committee that will oversee it, the board can, see the purpose of it and see that it will actually make an impact in our regional towns, then, it'll be looked at and, hopefully looked at favourably, and we can start distribute some cash through the regions for, this great cause.
And do you have any perspective on what's so special about Night Under the Stars? Like how was it such a success?
Oh, I think, and we've probably been pretty lucky in WA with the COVID times anyway, but I know last year it was in and around when some restrictions had been put in, and they just scraped in for numbers and all the rest of it. And I think people are just hungry for something to do. I know I didn't actually get to it last year. I had a clash with a boarders weekend from school. So, it was our son's first year away, and I sort of selfishly wanted as much time with him as I could. So, it's just the opportunity to get out and have a look. I suppose the world's or the landscape's bereft of BNSs anymore, but by the sound of it, it was sort of a pretty modern day BNS. But there was still representation of my generation going along, and I know I'm certainly looking forward to getting along this year and catching up a few of those young mates that we've made friends with along the way, and a few of the older ones, and I'm sure that it's going to be a cracker of a night on the 18th.
Brilliant. And I'm sure, I know CSBP has a few team members going, and I'm sure those team members will be looking forward to that and continuing to support the event. Brad, thanks for joining us and sharing your story and the story of the 6Bs today. And I think it's been great to hear about how you just don't have to do anything too complex. You just have to take a bit of initiative and just push ahead with an idea, and it can have a benefit to so many people's lives. So we've been really lucky to have you join. And I guess if there are, you mentioned the Man Up series that people might be interested in having a look at. If there are people out there keen to run an event, or if there are people out there keen to learn more about men's wellbeing or about mental health, what would you suggest and where should people head?
Yeah, look, I'm more than happy for people to make contact with me. But in terms of support, and if if this chat has triggered anything with people, there's obviously the support lines out there, but one of the main groups that I love to try and promote is Regional Men's Health Initiative based out of Northam. Team of 4 blokes out there, and they do some amazing work. So, for some help, to get some professional help if you need it, they are certainly top shelf. But, just connect with your mates, connect with your GP if you have to, and, don't give up the fight. It's, life's worth fighting for.
Good on you, Brad. Thank you for sharing that message with us. So that's it from us today at the CSBP Grow Better podcast. As Brad mentioned, if the conversation did raise any issues for you, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14, or you can go to lifeline.org.au to get in touch with them via text or chat, and we'll leave some contact details for that and for other resources in the show notes for our podcast today. That's it from us. Make sure you follow us at CSBP Fertilisers on all your favourite social platforms, and of course reach out if you've got any feedback or suggestions for the show. But it's been a wonderful conversation. I've been Grey Johnston. Thank you, Brad Millsteed.
Thank you very much.
Good on you, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of the CSBP Grow Better podcast. For more information about CSBP, please visit csbp-fertilisers.com.au or connect with us on social media at CSBP Fertilisers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn.